Hey, Ryan, tell me, five-star movie. What to you is a 100% five-star certifiable Ryan Ebling movie?
Gotta be The Apartment.
The Apartment, Billy Wilder, Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine.
That's right.
Yes. Same for me, actually.
All right.
Five-star movie.
5 stars.
Let's talk about that one. Hello and welcome to episode 124 of Can We Still Be Friends, a podcast where two friends stopped arguing about movies and started working through them together. I'm Nate Goss, here with Ryan Ebling. This year, we're going to slightly change the way we select our movies. Over the years, we've talked about how it's sometimes hard to quantify what makes a five-star movie. As a way to explore that and as a way to rewatch some of our favorite movies, we're going to only select movies that at least one of us has rated as 5 stars on our Letterboxd reviews. For this episode, we're excited to rewatch and discuss The Apartment, Billy Wilder's 1960 masterpiece starring Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine. And it's a movie we both have rated 5 stars.
The Apartment is, of course, a bona fide classic. Nominated for 10 Oscars and winner of 5, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Screenplay, love for The Apartment started early and hasn't really faded. Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine are Hollywood legends, and Billy Wilder, himself a Hollywood icon, directed several of the most iconic movies ever.
But many Best Picture winners lose their shine over the years. So what is it about The Apartment that people love?
What is it that makes it worth 5? Star-wise, I mean.
Sorry to bother you, buddy boy, but the little lady forgot her galoshes.
Mr. Kirkby, I don't like to complain, but you were supposed to be out of here by 8.
I know, buddy boy, I know, but those things don't always run on schedule like a Greyhound bus.
Well, I don't mind in the summer. It's but on a rainy night. I haven't had any dinner yet.
Sure. Look, kid, I put in a good word for you with Sheldrake and personnel.
Mr. Sheldrake?
That's right. We were discussing our department, manpower-wise, promotion-wise. I told them what a bright boy you are. They're always on the lookout for young executives.
Thank you.
You're on your way up, buddy boy, and you're also out of liquor.
Oh, I know. Mr. Eichelberger, Mortgage and Loan.
Okay, that was Jack Lemmon as C.C. Baxter negotiating the borrowing of his apartment with a top executive at his company.
Terms of the deal, I guess?
Yeah. And also showing why he's doing it, because he thinks it might help his career.
Yeah, so that kind of lays the groundwork for the context, I guess, for where the rest of the story unfolds. And it's a heck of a story that does unfold out of that. And before we jump right into our discussion of The Apartment, Happy New Year to you,
Happy New
Ryan.
Year, yeah.
It feels good to be back. Had our little break over the holidays. I hope all of our listeners had a really nice holiday break. And
watched a lot of movies, hopefully.
I hope so.
Right, and so as we wanted to rewatch some things, you kind of came up with the idea. Like, we've talked a little bit over the years about what makes a movie 5 stars, and it's kind of tough to quantify. So, not necessarily looking to totally nail down what makes something 5 stars so that we can never argue about it or, disagree about it again, but just what's a movie that you think is 5 stars, and let's talk about it.
And these are our 5 stars.
Right.
Maybe not both of us.
Right.
Some episodes it might just be mine, some maybe Ryan's. But we don't just dole out these 5 stars like they're nothing.
No. Yeah, these are hot commodities.
And so let's spend the next year enjoying watching some of those movies that had that special something, that special spark that got it all the way up past that 4.5 even.
Yeah, exactly.
Because a lot of mine kind of, if I think it's a great movie,
It'll
might
hover
sit
around
at
that 4.5 for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe on a second watch or something.
And then something happens where you just know.
Yeah. So we started with one that we both have listed as 5 stars on our Letterboxd, and you can find us, of course, on Letterboxd. And I mean, it's award season, so go with a Best Picture winner.
Right.
Go with something that's probably going to show up in some montages or something. The Apartment, which it's not controversial to say 5 stars for The Apartment.
This episode is not really about we're not doing any hot takes on this one necessarily.
No. We're just kind of getting our feet wet a little bit with this whole thing by going with something that I think I don't know. For me, it was 5 stars right away.
Same here.
It wasn't one that grew on me. I had to think about it. I
Right.
just saw it and
You just knew. It's always been a 5-star movie for me.
yeah.
Do you want to talk at all about the first time you saw it? How old you were? When was this?
I don't remember exactly when I saw this. I don't think it was in the college glut of watching stuff. I think it was after.
A little bit after. Okay.
Where I was probably able to process a little bit better. But I just know that when I watched it, sometimes you watch those classics and I wonder if it's going to hold my attention, if I'm going to stay awake,
Sure,
or, if the things that people thought were great about it will continue to be great and whatever. And for me, The Apartment, just totally,
Yeah.
I was actually watching a lot of Jack Lemmon at the time. And so, it was part of a string of Jack Lemmon movies and just like,
Now you talking about the span of Lemons? They're talking everything from maybe Some Like It Hot all the way up to like Grumpy Old Men, like that.
No,
that,
not into that. I don't think. I mean, Glengarry Glen Ross.
Was
part of that, but no, it was more the 50s, 60s, and 70s Jack Lemmon.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's again not controversial and not even original, but maybe just the greatest Jack Lemmon. This or Some Like It Hot.
Yeah.
Is peak Jack Lemmon comedy. Jack Lemmon drama,
kind
just
of back to back too. I mean,
yeah.
Wilder had just done Some Like It Hot.
Yeah.
The year before. So Some Like It Hot's 59. Actually, I read that Wilder basically just approached Lemmon and said, I got a project for you next. And that's how The Apartment happened.
And they wrote it
next year.
They wrote it with him in mind. So not a whole lot to it. I just saw it and I loved it. And ever since, anytime I see like it as a streaming option, I'm like, oh man, that's such a great movie.
Yeah,
and I've watched it a couple times since. But yeah, immediately 5 stars.
Yeah, I know the feeling because I have a very similar story. There's nothing too intriguing about it. It's just it was in that period of my life where I was just watching a ton of movies, mostly checking them out from the library. I wanted to know film. I wanted to kind of just. It doesn't sound great, but I wanted to be able to say I saw a lot of stuff, and basically know when people talked about certain titles, I just knew what they were talking about. And even if you're just kind of catching up on Best Picture winners through the decades, The Apartment's there.
Yeah.
But also, just if you start looking at lists of all-time great movies, it's always in the conversation. And then if you start looking at who are your most famous and most important directors of especially like Hollywood movies, and Billy Wilder is absolutely at the top of that list. And you start looking at what people consider the best of his movies, and The Apartment's right up there with there's so many great Billy Wilder movies.
Sunset Boulevard.
Ace in the Hole.
Yeah.
Some Like It Hot, like we've already said. It's just Double Indemnity. Geez. Yeah.
It's all over. Yeah.
It's crazy. But The Apartment is definitely like, some people think it's his best.
Yeah.
So I think I kind of went into it with some of the skepticism of you were talking about, but also the added layer of like, this has kind of got to prove it to me. Like, okay,
I've watched some of those great movies and been like, well, okay.
But The Apartment was just the whole time. It's like, I can tell this is a really good movie.
Yeah.
This is a great movie. But you're looking at the way the stakes are being lifted, and you're kind of like, this isn't going to go cheap on us, is it? Like, is it, please don't. And then it just, the perfect ending, 5-star, boom. Like, it's got to be. Like, that is just nailed it.
Yep.
That's like watching figure skating, and you're just watching like this like perfect routine, and someone nails the triple axel or whatever, and you're just
the
like,
hands go up and the audience roars.
Right.
The announcers are losing their minds.
Yeah.
I just remembered, I think the reason I watched it when I watched it was I was reading Roger Ebert's Great Movies.
It's an Ebert great movie.
Yeah.
Too.
I mean, one of many Billy Wilder that are in that book. And so that book, while I was reading it, I watched a lot of Vital stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess let's on the rewatch, how far did it fall?
Yeah, the way I was talking, you can tell it's just not quite living
just
up
didn't
to that.
hold up. Has not. No. So where do you want to start? What? I mean, we were talking about it as a tight movie. I think we could talk technically. I think we could talk emotionally.
Sure.
There's a lot of resonance with this movie.
Well, let's start with this. Okay. When you were watching it, what was it that you were kind of like, I can't believe that this is actually like working or,
Well, not so much I can't believe it isn't, but honestly, that first time you see the Office set
yeah.
is just like, okay, this is interesting. That is an incredible visual, and the economy of the opening, kind of the voiceover with the montage of what is Baxter up to, like this working, this hanging outside his apartment, then the whole thing, like it brings you up to speed very quickly in a way that's not just expository, where you get this sense of Baxter in the voiceover sees himself as just a good guy and just, nobody special, really.
But it is set against a backdrop of what sort of industry was looking like in its day.
Yeah.
You could draw the line from like modern times and the way that it portrayed factory work. This was portraying this sort of monotonous desk job.
Yep.
The orchestration of that, where even like when he's talking, he's doing the monologue, and then it's even got like the timing of is it a typewriter? Whatever he's working on, like with the music. It's like a playful, satirical, cynical look at this character who's really kind of a schlub, like kind of just a nobody.
Yeah.
I work on the 19th floor, Ordinary Policy Department, Premium Accounting Division, Section W, desk number 861. My name is C.C. Baxter, C for Calvin, C for Clifford, however most people call me Bud. I've been with Consolidated for 3 years and 10 months, and my take-home pay is $94.70 a week.
And then the sort of underpinning of it, the undertone of it all is a schlub who's willing to not only sell himself out, but sell these women out and sell the marriages of these men out for the opportunity to advance within this mechanized, hyper-efficient, jargony, empty, meaningless place.
But also just that you as a viewer immediately know that he is being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
This is a person that you feel sorry for.
Yeah. And, you get what his neighbor, what the Dreyfuses think of him. You're sort of like,
which I think is a really funny.
It is very funny, and they're wrong about it, but they're not wrong that he's living a bad life.
Yeah, right.
The thing that strikes me about this, and I've seen several Billy Wilder movies. I'm by no means an expert. I haven't rewatched a lot of his movies. I've only seen Sunset Boulevard once, Ace in the Hole once, but what strikes me about this movie that seems to be something that he's good at is being so economical and intentional with information and with visuals. And for being such an iconic director, he's not showy. There aren't these major flourishes or anything that's especially
flashy.
Signature or flashy.
Well, I think it's like when he does certain shots, it's because you are getting this insane amount of exposition just in the shot without having to have someone tell you anything. So everything we just talked about with the intro, there is a monologue, but the monologue is his idea of why he's doing this. And
then the visuals
are telling you this is actually pretty sad.
Yeah.
And then the same thing happens. I don't want to kind of jump to I don't want to jump ahead, but the way he finds out about Fran's being in his apartment when
who Sheldrake's woman is.
She pulls out the compact mirror.
Yeah.
And it's a fractured mirror, but that he is going to connect the dots. It's like the actual image itself told you that part of the story. It's a memorable Wilder moment.
Yeah. That's exactly where I was kind of headed with it, that he uses those moments sparingly, and when they are there, it's indelible. You remember that forever.
Yeah.
I want to talk more about that Christmas party scene.
Yes.
Specifically, but that's one moment where he does a visual thing. I remember I don't know if I've ever talked about the fact that I went to film school briefly. I don't like over
Here it comes.
I don't like overemphasizing the very brief amount of time that I was in film school.
I actually don't think you've ever brought it up.
That's why I'm reticent.
I'm aware of it as your friend.
I remember one of my teachers saying.
Now, where did you go to film school, by the way? Just for the record.
Savannah College of Art and Design is where I was. I just remember one of my teachers saying that it's hard to make good wide shots. If you compose only in close-ups, it's emotional. Like it's easy to compose close-ups, but
It's intimate.
It's hard to compose wide shots. And if you can use wide shots better and use wide shots like intentionally, then that's like the mark of a good director. And Billy Wilder keeps things wide a lot. You know, like seeing the office set is just like one wide shot, you know? But throughout the movie, he does that frequently where there's moving parts within the scene and your eye is directed.
I mean, he even does that
where you need to.
In a pretty tight apartment.
Exactly.
He does wide shots where different areas of the screen are telling you different things.
Right.
You can see the bedroom in the back.
Deep
and,
space and the action closer to the screen and everything. And one of the scenes that really stuck out to me this time as the mastery of his ability to choreograph a scene and use the wide space is when Fran's in the bed and he is looking for a toothbrush and finds the razors. You know, that's not a close-up of the razors.
Right.
It's not, he doesn't cut. There is not a cut in that whole thing. But with the performances and then just like keeping Fran in the background in that deep space, razors, he finds another one, keeps them in his pocket. Like he sees another bottle, puts that away, just letting all that happen and play out is so impactful.
Right. This shows character-wise, this is a guy who, even if he is someone who is looking out for himself, he just can't help but care about other people.
Yeah.
And think about other people
Right.
in a way that these other guys are not thinking
Absolutely
about.
not. Right. It's characterizing Baxter as that.
Yeah.
It's also characterizing Fran by raising questions about her. It's keeping the stakes high. It's not just saying we're out of the woods, you know? And it also respects the intelligence of the audience to know what's happening, but it also has way more emotional impact because we put it together. He sees the razors. We see the razors.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, we're maybe a step behind him, but we're there instead of zoom in on the razors.
Yeah.
Those are just visually, and there's others that we could talk about. Visually, Wilder is adding the complexity to the story without needing it to just be all auditory or all overt. We piece it together. And another thing that I noticed that is sort of developed throughout the movie, but developed fairly quickly, is verbal cues that kind of repeat. One, you know, like using the word wise to kind of show when he's trying to be like those men who are talking in these empty terms, these phrases that mean nothing.
Right.
And he's kind of play acting like these people. Another one is the use of the name Buddy Boy, where I think the first couple times you hear it, it feels a little bit like, oh, they're kind of in cahoots. But then you notice there's times where they say like, now listen, Buddy Boy.
Right.
Like,
it's almost a threat.
that sort of threatening.
It starts chummy.
And then times where they're like, they call him Baxter, right? And there's just sort of generally things around names with the movie, like whether it's Mr. Baxter and Miss Kubelik, or, you know, Jeff or Mr. Sheldrake, like just the terms people use for each other are really important to understanding the closeness or the authenticity they have in their conversation. And then it kind of wraps up in a really interesting kind of sweet way where they keep calling each other Mr. Baxter and Miss Kubelik in like a winking
like
sort
an
of
endearing
way.
kind of way.
Right.
Yeah.
He orients the viewer visually and with just sort of the verbal cues where very quickly through the repetition and also the alteration of these things, you aren't confused by the middle of the movie when they say Buddy Boy a certain way.
Yeah.
Whether this is a good thing for him, a bad thing for him.
Yeah.
He's got a choice to make. He doesn't have a choice to make, like that sort of thing. There are ways that he lets us figure it out. And there are ways where he holds our hand a little bit in a very subtle and pretty ingenious way.
Pretty clever. Yeah. You know, the way that they address him different ways is sort of a reminder of like, this is also just a movie about people staying in their place and when they decide not to stay in their place anymore.
Yeah.
And that this movie then sort of elevates from just a romantic love story to a story about each of those characters and how they grow as people, either with each other or on their own. Maybe they don't end up romantically together forever. They helped each other grow as people.
Right.
You know, it's so much greater than just a romantic comedy.
Right. The fact that it ends with did you hear what I said? And she says,
Shut up and deal.
But she says it in like a way that could absolutely be.
It opens the possibility, sure, but it also is sort of like
they saved each other,
right?
And whether that ends up romantic or whatever, I think the typically accepted view of it is that they end up together, right?
Sure.
Like that's sort of the Hollywood ending, but it's not. But it also doesn't do it so cleanly.
Yeah,
it is a movie that feels like classic Hollywood ending, like flourish, just the music swells and all that stuff. It is that. It also might not be, and it does that a lot, where it gives you something that you feel like you've seen, and then it kind of adjusts it.
Yeah,
the fact that Sheldrake ends up becoming kind of the main antagonist, kind of, is a surprise, because at first he's not one of the guys, and in fact, when he first catches wind of it, it seems like he's going to be somebody that they're going to have to kind of keep it from. And maybe this is the story that whatever. And, no, he's actually one of the worst of them.
Right.
And also with Fred MacMurray's reputation at the time, he was kind of in a multi-movie deal with Disney. This was kind of subversive casting to an extent that people knew him from The Shaggy Dog and some of these family movies.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you kind of think you see where this is going. Oh, the, poor little elevator girl and Baxter, who's ambitious and whatever. And while he rises, she's going to rise. And like even the metaphor of the elevator, like whatever. And then you get that Christmas party scene. And it turns out we are watching a different movie. And if it's all right, maybe this is where we talk about the Christmas scene.
Sure. Yeah.
Because this time I just was absolutely astounded by how brilliant that scene is.
Mm-hmm. This is the party at the
Christmas
office.
Party at the office, where Baxter he's been promoted.
Right.
Things
he's
are
happy.
Great. He's in everybody's good graces. He got what he wanted. In fact, he's poised to get more. And then Bran learns from the secretary what happened.
It's a scene of revelations.
Yes.
As the branch manager from Kansas City.
I beg your pardon?
I'm Miss Olson, Mr. Sheldrake's secretary.
Yes, I know.
So you don't have to play innocent with me. He used to tell his wife I was the branch manager from Seattle 4 years ago, and we were having a little ring-a-ding-ding.
Oh, I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about.
Just before me, there was Miss Rossi in auditing, and after me, there was Miss Koch in disability, and right before you was a Miss, what's her name, on the 25th floor.
Would you excuse me?
What for? You haven't done anything. It's him. Oh, what a salesman. Always the last booth in the Chinese restaurant, and the same pitch about divorcing his wife. And in the end, you wind up with egg foo young on your face.
Another thing I noticed this time watching it is just how oblivious the men are to specifically Fran. He sees her more than other people do, like he talks to her. She said, "You take your hat off in the elevator," right? He's not one of those guys. He's not one of those.
Well, you get the sense
everybody.
that she sees him as a sweet guy right away.
Right. But then at the Christmas party, he's like super oblivious to her. He doesn't pick up on her change in demeanor when she talks to the secretary, like whatever. He is becoming one of those men.
Because he feels empowered to do so. He's got the promotion.
This is why she hasn't been paying attention to me.
It's what they call the junior executive model. What do you think? I guess I made a boo-boo, huh?
I like it.
Really? You wouldn't be ashamed to be seen with somebody in a hat like this?
Of course not.
Maybe if I wore it a little more to one side. How's that? Is that better?
Much better.
Well, since you wouldn't be ashamed to be seen with me, how about the three of us going out tonight? You, me, and the bowler. We'll stroll down Fifth Avenue, sort of break it in.
This is a bad day for me.
Oh, I understand. Christmas family and all that.
I'd better get back to my elevator. I don't want to be fired.
You don't have to worry about that. I got quite a bit of influence in personnel. You know Mr. Sheldrake?
She is feeling what she's feeling. He is not picking up on that. So we've got like this party atmosphere. Then her revelation makes us a little bit sad. And then his elation is not fully hitting. And then he sees the mirror and like the whole thing changes. But she doesn't know what he knows when he sees that, and he doesn't know what she knows by talking to the secretary. So there's all that dramatic irony working really well.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that everything changed for both of them, and they can't connect over it.
Mhm.
He can't tell her why he knows who she is,
Right.
and she can't tell him what she just found out. And so this place where it feels like this is how they're going to
Yes.
get back together, they're farther apart than they've ever been.
How many layers of great writing is that?
Right.
You know?
And the visual of the compact mirror being
Uh-huh.
broken, and the maybe overly on the nose. I like it. It shows me how I feel. But it's also an opportunity for Baxter to be oblivious, because he's just thinking about what he just learned. He's not even listening to the fact
Right.
that she's saying, I feel broken. And to put it during like a Christmas party scene, again, all of that's going to add to what's happening in even a more impactful way than to do it any other way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, and this is maybe one of the things where you got a 5-star movie is, could they have made better choices?
It makes everything more sad that it's happening around Christmas.
And I mean, just plot wise, it makes sense why Jeff would not come.
Correct. Yeah. Christmas Day.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
We see he's
With
just
his family.
opened presents. He's wearing a robe with the tag still on it. He cannot possibly try to figure out a way to get out of the house.
Right.
So again, this is an example, and then we can think about other places too. For this to be a 5-star movie, you think, could they have made a better choice? And like time and again with this movie, for me, the answer is no. You couldn't have made a better script, acting, setting, editing, any decision. Like just one after another, nailed it.
Well, I cannot have you talk about the Christmas party and not just say, as far as nailed it, great scene, great scene. Look at all the stuff that you would see after that owes everything to the apartment. I mean, let's just say the entire series of Mad Men. They are sad because
They
the
kinda turn that
apartment
dark,
said you
yeah.
have permission to make that sad.
Yeah, right.
We could talk about Cameron Crowe with Almost Famous, and that whole love story is very much the apartment
Yes, yeah.
in Almost Famous,
Yeah.
down to the stomach getting pumped. And actually, that's intentional, because there is like Cameron Crowe loved Billy Wilder enough to write a book about Billy Wilder.
Oh, that's right.
With interviews, and there is a Guardian article where he talks about this. He talks specifically about the apartment. So many great choices in this movie that would go on to basically give permission to everybody else to, make a movie that's both funny and this dark.
Yeah.
And make a movie that shows not just the emptiness of corporate life, but also like the salaciousness of it, and like the sort of the seediness of it,
Right.
and paint that all with a very cynical brush.
Right.
To
in 1960 make a movie that is questioning the values that capitalism kind of forces on people, and then for it to be palatable enough to win Best Picture.
Right.
The
tightrope this movie is walking.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about like the ways in which this movie is actually so funny.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about Jack Lemmon as a comedic performer. We haven't talked about Shirley MacLaine and how amazing of a performance this is to bring this particular character with all of her nuances and complexities to life, and to make it all believable between these two characters.
Well, I feel like what's happening with Shirley MacLaine in this one is something that I've talked about before, which is taking a performer whose talents and whose maybe notoriety is in a realm that's very different from the kind of character they're playing. Like singing and dancing and comedy was kind of Shirley MacLaine's, not exclusively, but like a lot of what she was known for. And while this character is effervescent and funny, the bulk of her movie is not that. All her scenes with Sheldrake leading up to her suicide attempt, the aftermath of that's all taking this person known for energy and forcing them to bottle it.
Yeah.
And what happens when a talented person is able to kind of bottle that and channel that energy into the emotion and to the heartbreak? I mean, this is a prime example of that, of why Shirley MacLaine's performance is just so astounding.
It is. And it's also just Shirley MacLaine has this aura of her that's the way Cameron Crowe put it was you might actually miss it the first time you see her, and the second time you're infatuated.
Yeah. And I think something else that transforms Baxter's attraction to her into something more believable and more worthwhile is it's not just that she needs him so he like falls deeper in love with her. It's sort of like he kind of realizes what loving her is going to entail. And he tells the story of his own suicidal contemplation and kind of a failed attempt that it plays it a little bit lightly, but it adds that layer to him where he's felt alone and low.
Yeah.
And he knows what it feels like to be at the end of your rope. And he kind of realizes what loving her out of that is going to be, what that's going to look like to love this woman now. And he commits to it, even if she won't love him back. And that's where it sort of like becomes a much more complex, but also more than just a love story, is that Baxter kind of realizes there is dignity and value in loving someone, even if they're not going to love you back. The transactionality has been taken out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, again, it's not so totally spelled out. Like you just kind of have to watch it. And it's like to watch it, it's just interesting. But then to talk about it, it's fascinating. He realizes that doing things quid pro quo.
Yeah. What's in it for me?
Is a terrible way to live. It's not being a mensch. It's not being a human being. Right. And so he decides to be a human being. And the doctor models that.
Right.
I don't respect you. I don't think your way of life is good, but I'm going to be a human being for you, mainly for her, but also for you a little bit.
Right. And his wife.
Right.
Brings the food over, take care of each other.
Right.
Look, Doc, can't you forget you're a doctor? Let's just say you're here as a neighbor.
Well, as a doctor, I guess I can't prove it wasn't an accident. But as your neighbor, I'd like to kick your keister clear around the block. Mind if I cool this off?
Help yourself.
I don't know what you did to that girl in there, and don't tell me. But it was bound to happen the way you carry on. Live now, pay later, Diners Club. Why don't you grow up, Baxter? Be a mensch. You know what that means?
I'm not sure.
A mensch, a human being. So you got off easy this time, so you were lucky.
Wasn't I?
But you're not out of the woods yet, Baxter, because most of them try it again. Well, you know where I am if you need me.
And so not only does he realize what taking care of and loving her is going to mean for him, he sees two people model what it looks like to love and take care of anybody. And it's beautiful.
Right. And also pretty damning of corporate America.
Right. Yeah. I wondered, do they really make movies this small anymore? Now, that might sound weird because this was a major movie and Billy Wilder was a big director, but I mean small in terms of scope. You could conceivably make this a play, you know, like small cast.
There's like 3 sets.
Right. It stays very small. And even though the ideas that we're talking about are big, you could also say those ideas aren't in there. Like you could say,
sure,
I don't know, it's just about these people.
I was going to say, I mean, I saw this year, His Three Daughters was a movie that was like a cast of maybe 5 or 6 people.
Right.
Mostly takes place in an apartment, very dialogue driven. I'm trying to think of other examples recently.
Past Lives.
Yes, Past Lives was and
look at that.
Great movie.
One of the best movies of the last 10 years. I don't know. It's just like, it may not even be that important, but I was just thinking like, this is a movie that was focused and technically flawless, did its job.
There's an economy to it.
Yeah.
I think nowadays you get a movie or a script this strong and maybe a streaming platform decides let's turn it into a series. You know, like these are great characters. Hey, let's stretch it out. I mean, you know, don't you want to know where these characters go over 4 or 5 seasons?
Yeah,
you know?
right. Or even just one season.
And hey, if you're an audience member, sure you would.
Yeah.
It's tempting to want that.
Yeah.
But the payoff of having just a tight 2-hour movie where you get to know these characters in a situation that is actually not that complex, but just the complexities are so drawn out
because they're humans.
Yes,
they're 3-dimensional characters.
You know, and what's funny is that like you'd think for a movie with such a small scope that it wouldn't maybe have as much of a rewatch value,
right?
But the script is so good, so layered, and the performances are so great. You could rewatch it a million times.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of magic for everything because there is a bit of star appeal. I just love watching those
Oh my
actors
gosh, yeah.
play off each other.
Right. Jack Lemmon having a cold. Like there's just like these things that are just like super funny. And like
the way he dances in that bar
yeah.
with
just like leaning his face against Margie, barely staying on their feet.
This movie is not so full of itself to not just veer into physical comedy once in a
Right.
while. And Jack Lemmon's great for that. One thing I kind of realized watching this, and then I did watch a little bit of Some Like It Hot, you know,
Keep
kind
that
of
going.
see the Jack Lemmon Wilder thing at work. And he is such a great physical comedian. I mean, he really is to me, like what I loved about Jim Carrey
Absolutely.
in the day
Yeah.
was just he could bring a physicality to a dramatic performance.
Yeah.
It's a level of exaggeration that only that character and Jack Lemmon or,
Yeah.
you know, we're talking about Jim Carrey, like that they can kind of pull off as convincing enough for that character.
Right. Yeah. And so the fact that you don't get whiplash watching this movie is a testament to everybody's strength
Yeah.
because you've got like the scene where he has a cold and he's just like stuffing his pockets with
God.
Kleenex and all stuff.
It's a miserable scene, by the way.
It
Like,
is. But then if you like cut to finding her in his bed, like it would just be like obviously that nobody put those scenes back to back, but the fact that those are in the same movie
Yeah.
and you don't feel like, whoa, what just
What
happened
am I
here?
watching now? Yeah.
And then it kind of goes back to even before we're fully out of the woods with the suicide attempt, straining pasta with a tennis racket
Right. Yeah.
is funny, but it's also because of the way they put it together and when they put it in the movie, it's an incredibly sweet moment
Yeah.
with them that
Right.
he's letting her into his life enough to know why there's a tennis racket
Yeah.
in his
Right.
apartment. And she's falling enough for it that she's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's
have dinner.
yeah, let's have dinner with your tennis racket pasta. It's just it's not just Wilder's direction and his script. It's also that those performers can handle all of that.
Mhm. Well, one way in which I think this movie, it hit me today, like this time, was the idea that the movie puts forward about some people take, other people get taken.
Mm-hmm.
The movie presents a world in which there's a truth to that. But there's a really promising hope in it that to a certain extent, you can just say, I don't want to get taken anymore. Now, you know, he leaves the job. We don't really know what comes after that. He's going to have to eventually find another job of some sort. That might be the closest thing to a Hollywood ending about it is, you
Right.
know, you don't really know how he ends up on his feet.
Right.
But I think the movie is kind of a middle finger to that cynical take, but also an understanding of that is in a way the world does work.
Yeah.
That is the mentality today of the world.
Right.
That's the mentality that
Yeah.
elects Donald Trump, honestly.
Right.
Some people take, other people get taken, and you are either the one that is taking or you're the one that's getting taken.
Yeah.
And we are tired of getting taken, so we're
gonna
going to
take.
hire someone who
Yeah.
takes.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think this movie kind of says you can understand life that way and you can play that game, but it is not fulfilling. It is, you know, pretty sad.
Yeah.
Here you have two characters who kind of decide, like you said, that things are not going to be transactional anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just kind of felt like this is a film that takes place somewhat over New Year's, and this is when they sort of make those decisions. And it is a new year right now.
Yeah.
And it's a new year that we are heading into where I think we are even going to go deeper and deeper into this idea of
Right.
you are either a taker or someone who is getting taken.
Right.
This is going to be the mentality
Yeah.
for a while. And I want to be CC Baxter and Fran Kubelik, and we're just going to decide not to see life that way. Because you can find people around you
Mm-hmm.
who won't think life is like that
Mhm.
and who will take care of you
Mhm.
and who will see people who need help, people who are at the end of the rope, and decide not to take advantage of that
Exactly.
and just try to show them some care and some love.
Yeah. And be
Doesn't have to be romantic love, but maybe it is, but maybe it's not.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What matters is maybe we are being taken.
Yeah.
Well, at least we got each other.
And you got the idea that like Baxter, you know, gave up his ticket to the top. It's like, who wants to be on top of that?
Couldn't you see a lot of, I mean, that is like so many people's idea of like he'd be a schmuck, an idiot
Right.
to do that.
Yeah. But the movie's clearly saying, like, why would you want to be on a ladder to nowhere?
That's the thing, is it makes all of that look pathetic.
Yeah.
By the end of the movie, you got to go through the whole movie to get there.
Yeah.
But like, it actually makes all of those men look pathetic, and makes that idea of rising to the top look like such a stupid thing to even go after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I love that about the movie.
Yeah.
It makes all the things that we all know are not going to lead to a happy, fulfilling life, but we all somehow get told we
Still
need to
buy it.
strive
Yeah.
for.
Yep.
And it really does a great job of showing, like, look at the pain that causes.
Yeah.
Look at the way people take advantage of each
Yeah.
other.
Look at how you
look at
have
the way
to treat
men
people.
will take advantage of this situation.
Yeah.
You can just decide you're not getting my key anymore,
Right.
basically. And this is so much of what was in Mad Men as well.
Right. Yeah.
But Mad Men's a different show. It had a different agenda to it. You know, in Mad Men, it was almost like we're going to follow the Fred McMurray character
right.
and just see where that ends.
Yeah.
This movie, I think, is just, it's like, let's follow the guy who is never actually going to be that person, but
Right.
thinks they want to be.
Yeah.
And that is so many people.
But it's interesting that you say that about Mad Men, because I was reading that part of the idea for The Apartment was watching Brief Encounter.
Yes, the David
and
Lean movie.
Thinking,
Yes.
and Billy Wilder thinking, like, well, who's the guy whose apartment they're using?
Who's the sad sap who still has the still warm bed?
Yeah.
I think that was like what he
Oh,
wrote on like a
that's right,
napkin or
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I think you're right. Be more like Baxter by the end of the movie. Know that loving people isn't transactional, and figure out how to be a mensch.
A mensch. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we started at both 5 stars. The whole thing was, not necessarily testing the limits of our friendship
Right.
here. More like, what makes us a 5-star? And I think if we could bullet point it, I think be impeccable in your filmmaking
That's the number one rule.
and portray humanity in all its complexity.
And if you can do that,
Yes.
you got a 5-star hit on your hands there.
Yeah, that's right. But that's a 5-star, 5 Oscar Best Picture winner. So any movie from here on out that comes
That
out
can
that
be
does
impeccable.
that, we
and
get
treat yes.
we
Well,
get
we
we get
should.
story
Yeah.
we get story by credit.
At least
Mm-hmm.
I expect to hear us quoted a lot when future filmmakers say what it
Yeah,
was
what
that
were you
really
going for?
what was it that
Mhm.
you were really using as your guidelines,
Yeah.
your rubric for what you were doing.
Well, I've never seen The Apartment, but I heard a podcast about it, and it really got me thinking. Really motivated me.
So go out and make those 5-star movies.
Yeah, please stop making things that aren't 5 stars.
Right. Sick of this 4.5 crap. I do think we still need to ask if we're best buds or if it's complicated here, because some episodes
There might be some.
episodes we might have it where it's
Yeah.
like you're very 5-star or vice versa, and,
Yeah.
and the other one is saying no, this is absolutely not a 5-star movie. But in this case, we're best buds.
Yeah.
And hey, any of our listeners want to try to push us off of this this mountain that we're on?
Yeah.
You can try.
What's this
but
mountain? Is this mountain of expertise or just
This is-
the high of
this is
watching
the high
The
of-
Apartment?
It's got to be the latter,
Okay.
because there's certainly not a lot of expertise going on here.
I was wondering what you were claiming.
Anyways, I'm glad we watched The Apartment. It's good to talk about it, but why don't we go ahead and swing into what we're going to talk about in our next episode?
Yeah.
So for our next episode, our second in our 5-star movie series, this is a Ryan pick.
Yeah.
A Ryan 5-star
One of my
movie
5 stars,
original.
Yeah.
Not an original. It's a 5-star
Yeah, I
to
didn't
Ryan
make this
original.
movie.
You did not make this movie. Who did make this movie is Hal Ashby.
Uh-huh.
Ryan's 5-star choice for March. We're going to take next month off. Do you want to? I think you should say it. I don't feel like I should say it. This is your movie.
All right. This is this a controversial one? Do you think?
You mean as far as do other people see it this way, or
Yeah,
in
as
what
a
way?
5-star, as a 5-star.
I think like a lot of people do, but I also think that it's.
I think it's divisive.
Is it kind of a cult classic in that way?
Possibly. I think there probably aren't a lot of people who are in the middle on this movie.
You're either loving it,
Yeah.
or you just
really don't
just
like
really
it.
don't like it.
That's my feeling. We're staying old. 1971.
Which I like. Because we haven't done this in a while.
No, we
this
haven't.
feels great.
We got excited by doing new movies for a while, and now we think it's time we go back. A quietly classic director, Hal Ashby. Not a household name, really, among a lot of moviegoers.
We both love The Holdovers, remember?
Oh, yeah. And we talked about Hal
We
Ashby
talked about
then,
how
yeah.
that was just basically an homage to Hal Ashby.
Right.
Amongst others.
Yeah.
But we're talking filmmaker of Being There.
Right.
I love Bound for Glory, which is his Woody Guthrie
I haven't
biopic.
seen
he
that
did.
one.
That would be great homework for
I
you.
saw Shampoo, Last Detail.
I caught up with that one
Yeah,
just
that
a
one's
couple
great.
months ago. My God, what a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not doing those.
No.
Harold and Maude is
Yes.
what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. This has been 5-star forever for you.
It has.
Like, this is like a formative.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not watching this when you're a kid necessarily, but like
I mean,
formative.
I watched it in high school.
Oh, is that it? Really goes back that far?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to have to tune in next time.
Tune in next
Find
time.
that out, Nate.
The other thing you should tune in about is when I saw this movie, I did not like it.
That's right.
I did rewatch it recently and liked it a heck of a lot more. So we'll talk about that as well,
We will.
amongst other things.
Yeah.
Hal Ashby oriented.
Yeah.
Maybe Bud Cort oriented.
Bud Cort. Yeah. Maybe we'll watch a bunch of.
Bud
P.T.
Cort is now in
Anderson.
session. Yeah.
He's in a lot of P.T. Anderson movies.
He is,
recently. So yeah, maybe we want to do some Hal Ashby homework.
Yeah.
In any case, whether on this rewatch I realize it's not a 5-star movie or whatever
Who knows what could
happens,
happen.
you know, that's the other thing we didn't really talk about. This isn't just a defense of the 5-star movie.
That's true. We should make that clear. Yeah.
This is I've had it as 5-star. We're going to watch it, and it maybe
Is
we're
it-
going to watch it.
is it still there?
and, it's not for us anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
That's happened for me.
Yeah, not on air.
Not on
but-
air, but it has happened. It was actually sort of a reason I thought this would be an interesting project for the year, is because maybe it'll happen with a few other movies.
That's
We'll
possible.
end up needing to take it down a notch.
People really want to see the sparks fly like that.
Right. Now, I think we were saying this off air when we were picking the movie, but you see this as a spring movie.
Yeah.
So this is a movie
And
that
I
we're
might
kind
be
of
totally wrong.
Right, but
I also see it as a fall movie.
So either way, transitional seasons
Yeah,
here,
right.
And we're going to be in that in
I
March.
feel like in the
so
beginning it's a very fall movie.
I would have associated it with fall, but
Yeah.
maybe spring. I think you might be right because it feels like maybe the weather is getting warmer
by the end.
by
of
the
it.
end.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows?
Anyways, it felt right for March.
Yes.
So that's what we're doing.
It's always the right time for Cat Stevens.
That's true.
Which
Yes.
this movie was actually my introduction to Cat Stevens.
Yeah.
As well.
So good.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get to it.
We'll get to it.
We need to watch it first.
Yeah.
Watch it with us. Watch it for the first time.
Please
Watch
do.
it again.
During this project, I would like to extend the invitation for our listeners to share what are your 5-star movies.
Yeah.
Send all that stuff our way to listen to or comment on this or any of our past episodes. Find us at canwestillbefriends.net or email us at feedback@canwestillbefriends.net. If you'd like to leave us a voice message and even be featured on the podcast, you can always email us a voice memo.
As always, we'd love it if you could subscribe and leave us a rating or review at Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you get your podcasts and they allow ratings and reviews.
Spotify does too, from what I
That's
understand.
right. Those ratings really help spread the word about our show. Can We Still Be Friends is written and produced by Ryan Ebling and Nate Goss and edited by Nate Goss. Thanks for listening.
And we'll catch you next time.